I'm going to go ahead and get started. What we're going to talk about today is September 11th. This is the 17th anniversary of the attacks on September 11th. And speaking of never forget, what is it exactly that we're never forgetting? I know that the truthers, people like me, people like you, who know the truth about 9/11 and push for the truth about 9/11, I know what we're never forgetting, but what is the average person with that bumper sticker on their car never forgetting? You know, they still support all these wars. They still believe that it had to do with terrorists. They still believe it had to do with Al-Qaeda. They still don't question why we're still in Afghanistan, why we went to war with Iraq at all, any of that. What are they never forgetting? Are they never forgetting that it happened? I mean, that's nice, but we need the truth. We need to remember to spread the truth and to seek the truth about things like 9/11. And the reason why that's important is because all of this stuff that's going on right now, all of these wars in the Middle East, all of this suppression of free speech, this is all centers around and began at 9/11. You know, with the Patriot Act, which was already written before 9/11, but rolled into, right after 9/11, rolled into law. And recently re-signed by Obama. That was already ready to go. 9/11 was an orchestrated event. But anyways, I was talking about why it's important to spread the truth about 9/11. It's important to spread the truth about 9/11 because silence is consent. There is a cabal that has taken over our country. The rest of the world knows about this. You know, this isn't new information to most people around the globe. But most Americans don't know that. They believe, oh, my government would never attack itself. Your government has planned that many times. Most of the wars we've gotten into are under false pretenses. You know, let's not forget the Gulf of Tonkin incident. You know, if you want to talk about the government wouldn't fake something to get into a war, what about that? Well, let's see. I've been writing down notes. 9/11 is a passionate subject to me, as I'm sure it is to a lot of you, as it should be. 9/11 was one of the days that drastically changed our country. The biggest one before that I can think of would be the assassination of JFK, when the cabal actually took over the executive branch of our government. But 9/11 was a really big one, and the truth of it is getting shoved under the rug. Like I said, half of Americans, when polled, have trouble with the official story, and most of the world doubts the official story. Most of the world is on board that it was a controlled demolition and an inside job. Hey, Robert, I was hoping you'd stop by. I was trying to tag people, and it wouldn't let me. It would probably let me if I knew more about computers, but yeah, politics and stuff says, please feel free to comment. Absolutely, this is a participation show. So I've got things prepared. I'll go on and rant and talk about 9/11, but I want to hear from you guys too. So comment in the comment section and we'll talk about whatever you want. Robert, most of the world, really, most of the world believes that it was an inside job and a controlled demolition, at least a controlled demolition. You will find studies from many different countries where they've already come to the conclusion that 9/11 was a controlled demolition. And I would say most, you know, if we're going percentage-wise, most countries, most people around the world have a problem with the official 9/11 story. And when polled, over half of Americans. And you don't? I mean, I would like to hear from people that don't. I almost tagged Dr. Ben Davis, who I was recently in a debate with on Robert's show, The Right to Reason. So I almost tagged him too, but like I said, it wouldn't let me tag people because I would love to hear from people that don't believe in the conspiracy theories of 9/11. or that 9/11 was a conspiracy at all. I mean, even if you believe the official story, technically that's a conspiracy. 19 guys conspired to attack 4 targets, and they hit 3 of them. So already it's a conspiracy. But you know what I mean by conspiracy theory, the derogatory conspiracy theory term. Robert, other governments? I don't know about other governments going on record about it. I would have to look at that more, but I'm talking about other nations' media. Like, you know what? Now I wish I would have prepared more notes on what countries do have problems with the official story. For now, let's just go with a lot of them do. But the ones on record, I really couldn't tell you. I don't have a list. I just was throwing out a quick stat about most Americans have a problem with the official story, as they should. I have some notes written down. I thought maybe I would go briefly through. Oh, Robert says, then Ben, you're less committed to the official story than Ben is. I think I know where you have a problem with it. You have a problem with the Pentagon strike. And I think I've got you on board with Building 7 being really weird. Robert says, anyone that doesn't think our government and media would pull off a major conspiracy is forgetting weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Absolutely. Do you guys remember that? You had Colin Powell and all those, Robert Mueller, all testifying that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and they didn't. You know, they thought it was a joke. You can look up video of George Bush laughing at a fundraising event about there's weapon of mass destruction over here. He thinks it's funny. But they used that as a pretense to get us to go to war with Iraq, which was something that they already had decided that they wanted to do. Robert says, yeah, Pentagon and Building 7 is fishy as fuck. Now, as somebody that, I know you're skeptical of getting on board with conspiracies. As somebody that's skeptical of getting on board with conspiracies, don't those are big problems with the official story. Those are 2 really big holes. Now, doesn't that make you think, hey, if you would mislead me about this here, how can I trust you about any of this? You know, because I think I've had a conversation with you before where you say that the best time or the only acceptable time to believe in a conspiracy is after it's been proven to be true. But don't you think those 2 big holes, like, how could Hani Hanjour fly that plane into the Pentagon in that way? To do a, 220-degree descending corkscrew turn, to come even with the first floors, to without scraping the lawn, knocking down 5 light poles, he was so low. To hit it where he hit it, and then I wish I had control over the pictures in the slides here, but I have pictures of the side of the Pentagon in this slideshow. There's not a big enough hole for a plane. You know, then you have the Pentagon releases 5 frames. They say that's all they have, the most protected building on the planet. And all they have is 5 frames to release to you of what happened at the Pentagon. Okay, but none of those 5 frames show a plane. They show a vapor trail. Looks like a missile to me. But let's go. I'm going to go briefly through the day. So I'm going to go briefly through the day and give people time to talk. Politics and stuff says 3 buildings have fallen due to fire. All were on 9/11. That's true. That's a stat that still stands today. Steel frame structures that collapsed due to fire. 3, all on 9/11. Only 2 of which were hit by airplanes. I wish I quit smoking. I think that's distracting. Anyways, we're going to go briefly through the official story. Just to recap, and as I go, the way I decided to do this was I'm going to go through the official story, and as I go, I'm going to point out my problems with it, and I'm going to watch the comments to see if you guys have anything to say as well. Hi, Jeff. Jeff says Jesse Ventura said it was an inside job. He blew up shit in Nam. Yeah, Jesse Ventura was a SEAL, and he was in demolitions. And he's somebody whose opinion I would take on this. Not only does he know about demolitions, but he was governor at the time. He got tours of Ground Zero. He got tours of the Pentagon. Jesse Ventura is also on record as talking about how they were resodding the lawn of the Pentagon days after the attack. Why are they covering up evidence? Any of it. Why ship all the steel to China? Why would you not want to investigate? You got 3 steel frame buildings that collapsed to dust from fire. Why wouldn't you want to investigate how that happened? Just for the sake of preventing it in the future. All right, Robert, I'll see you later. But I'm going to go through the official story real quick and just stop along the way and say we're going to go for a little while. Please feel free to talk and add what you want to say in the comments, because I'm watching it as we go. But so the day started at 8:46 in the morning. Tower 1 of the Pentagon of the World Trade Center gets hit by a commercial airliner around the 83rd floor. Goes in like butter. Both of them do. The second plane that comes in goes like butter too. No resistance. I have a big problem with that. You know, a lot of what I'm going to go into is your basic senses. For this one, your eyes. You can trust your eyes. I don't know why people don't. You have to trust your eyes. What you see when that plane hits that building is impossible. That plane goes into, well, both of them go right into those buildings like there is absolutely no resistance. That is an aluminum airplane. It's made to fly. It's light. It's an aluminum tube. A bird can destroy the nose of an airplane. Just hitting a bird. Birds disrupt airplanes all the time. And the wings are one of the lightest parts on the plane. They should have fallen off. They shouldn't have went in the building. They shouldn't have cut through it like butter. It should have looked dramatically different than what you saw. Now, I've seen many theories on why it looked the way it did. But what I personally believe is that section was weakened. There was an Israeli art group in both towers for months before the attacks on 9/11. They called themselves Plan B, or the B thing. They were in those areas of the towers. So I believe that they weakened the structure so that the planes could enter like that. But I also don't believe that they were commercial planes. But we'll get back to that in a little while. Then you have the Pentagon strike. All right. There's a lot of problems with the Pentagon strike and the strikes on the 2 towers as far as what happened with our Air Force on that day. And for those of you that know, there was a war game going on called Vigilant Guardian, which was simulating the exact same thing that was actually taking place on the morning of 9/11. So when they involved the military wasn't sure if this was real world or exercise. And they were also diverted all around the country. Our military was up in Canada watching a Soviet transport of missiles. They had them diverted all kinds of places. And when they finally did send out jets, they sent them in the wrong direction. And they sent them from the furthest airport. But I digress. I'll get back to that in a minute. What was I saying? The Pentagon. That plane was in the air for what, over an hour, unmolested. It did a 220, I believe it's 220 degree descending corkscrew turn. Instead of just diving right down into the Pentagon, which would have been the easiest way to do it, which is what you would expect an amateur to do, does a complicated maneuver. The aircraft controllers that were watching it on radar thought it was a fighter jet because of the way it was moving. You know, pilots in simulators cannot reproduce the flying done on 9/11. That should raise a red flag. These are supposed to be amateurs. And they flew these airplanes, these commercial jets. They flew them like fighter jets. Anyways, Hani Hanjour is the greatest example of that. He does this complicated maneuver, hitting 5 light poles on the way with coming dead even to the bottom floors of the Pentagon. And again, going in like butter. Except his wings disappeared. There's not even damage on the building where his wings were. Then you have the prepackaged story of Flight 93. I don't know why my pictures have stopped. Let's see if I can fix that. I love my technical difficulties. There we go. Anyway, sorry about that. I know that was distracting. But the prepackaged story of Flight 93. You had, I believe, the most likely story for Flight 93 is that it was shot down. But let's go with the official story. In the official story, the passengers got together after calling their loved ones and decided to take the plane back from the terrorists. They chanted, "Let's roll," took a drink cart and charged the cabin, took control of the plane, but unfortunately caused the plane to crash down in the field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of problems with that. The main one is that the coroner that was there in Shanksville that day said that he stopped being coroner right after he got there because there was no evidence of a plane crashing anywhere in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It was just gone. That's 4 planes, 3 that hit their targets, 1 that hit a field, all gone. Vaporized, gone. Why doesn't anybody have a problem with this? You can look up typical airplane crashes. Airplanes break up in all kinds of pieces. Like I say, they're made to fly. It's a light aluminum tube. Anyways, let's move on. Let's go to the collapse of the Twin Towers. Both of these buildings collapsed to dust at near free fall speed into the path of most resistance, going straight down. Matter of fact, when building 2 falls, you see it starts to tilt. I wish I had video handy of it right now. But you see it starts to tilt, and then it just evaporates in thin air. All right? But then the rest of the building collapses. What's hitting it? What's hitting the rest of the building? But we can ignore those 2 collapses just for a second. The one that no one, and I would love somebody to give me a good explanation for this. Not even our government can touch this one. Building 7. How did Building 7 fall the way that it did? You know, it fell later on that day at 5:20 p.m., I believe. The funny thing about when Building 7 fell, you may have seen this. The BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation or whatever, reported that Building 7 had fallen 30 minutes before it actually did. When the reporter is on screen, Building 7 is clearly visible behind her, and she's reporting that it has collapsed. That's an interesting note, that the overseas media seemed to have inside information that that building was going to come down, and they were just a little premature with it. That's just an interesting note. But no one can seem to give me anything for the collapse of Building 7. Because you see, I would love to be wrong about thinking that my government is responsible for killing 3,000 people and millions of people since. I would absolutely love to be wrong. But I'm not wrong. And if I am, no one has proven to me that I'm wrong. And I'm open. I'm open-minded. I'm open to that. But no one can answer Building 7 for me. Like I recently debated this guy. I wanted to tag him, Dr. Ben Davis. I hope he stops by. I'll try tagging him later, and maybe he'll comment and we can talk back and forth. But he was an engineer or a nuclear physicist, but very smart guy. And he was telling me that the official story of Building 7 is true, but he really couldn't tell me why. Now, to be fair, he didn't have time to look into it, but maybe he's had time since then. Maybe he can shed some light. I would love for somebody to, because knowing that my government attacked itself in order to go to war in the Middle East and have this and do the bidding of the military-industrial complex, knowing that is not a comfortable truth. It's not a comfortable thought to know that about your government, to know that they're liars and that Tim Osman here wasn't responsible for any terrorist attack on 9/11. He was most likely dead. Tim Osman, or Osama bin Laden, as he's better. Tim Osman is his CIA code name. For those of you that don't know, we started Al-Qaeda. The United States began Al-Qaeda. We trained them, armed them, funded them, all of it. when we were in the Cold War against the Soviets. We helped them to fight Russia. And then we turned them into a boogeyman when it was convenient for us, just like we're doing with ISIS now. But let's see, I'm up to building 7. Now let's touch for a minute on the amount of money made on 9/11. There was massive amounts of money made and hidden on 9/11. Let's start with the fact that on 9/10, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld had a press conference where he admitted that the Pentagon had misplaced 2.3 trillion with a T, dollars. That's not black ops. That's not secret operations. That's money that cannot be accounted for. They don't know where it is. All right. And that happens to be the wing of the Pentagon that gets hit in the Pentagon strike, where they're investigating the $2.3 trillion. And then everybody just forgets about it. It's never mentioned again. And today that number's up to 21 trillion. That they just don't know where it is. They cannot account for it. Let me see what we got in the comments here. Politics and stuff. Says conspiracy theories with Jesse Ventura, the 9/11 show. A woman in the section of the left of the hole of the Pentagon was working when the explosion hit. She walked out the burning hole. Let me see more. She claims it was a missile and was never interviewed by the commission and was denied an interview with local news and authorities. She was a witness. There were many witnesses. And I had heard about that woman at the Pentagon, but there's a general that was at the Pentagon too that claims that it was a missile. And the reporters that were first there, they never aired this again, but when the reporters first arrived, there's a picture of the side of the Pentagon before it collapsed. The roof of the Pentagon didn't collapse till later. Look at that hole. There's no way that that's a plane. Anyways, I was talking about witnesses. Yeah, there was this woman. Isn't this the same woman that had her son or daughter at work with her that day? And they both got out. But yeah, she claimed it was a missile. That general claimed it was a missile. And he also said he saw a helicopter, a Black Hawk, leaving the other direction. But yeah, there's many people that have talked about it being a missile at the Pentagon. I wish I knew names right now offhand, because it's a shame Robert had to leave. I liked having a skeptic here. If you're a skeptic, please speak up. If you believe the official story of 9/11 and you think people like me who don't are crazy kooks, please speak up. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your opinions on why you think that. Because just to talk about the money a little more, there was a tremendous amount of put options put on the 2 airlines that were involved in the attacks on 9/11. Their stocks both plummeted. Now, what a put option is when you're making a bet that a stock will drop. And they made huge amounts of money in that way. Larry Silverstein let's back up a little bit about Larry, all right? We need to talk a little bit about Larry Silverstein. So Larry Silverstein held the lease on the World Trade Center complex on 9/11 and profited greatly from the terrorist attacks on 9/11. But a lot of people don't realize that he had just taken over the lease. Larry Silverstein signed the lease on the World Trade Center complex July 24th of 2001. It was just months later that it was gone. And he had included clauses that he could rebuild if something happened to it. He took out a double indemnity clause in his insurance. He had to go through 20-something different insurance companies to get the amount of insurance he wanted on the World Trade Center complex, because he wanted it triple insured, I think. That's before the attack even happened. Now, after the attack happened, he argued in court that it was 2 separate terrorist attacks. So he got 2 separate payouts on his insurance. Anyways, he signed the lease July 24th, 2001 for the World Trade Center complex. A 100-year lease, 99-year lease for $3.2 billion. He only put down $14 million of his own money. And when he was able to claim the insurance claim on the World Trade Center complex, he collected $4.5 billion off of $14 million. And he gets to rebuild a brand new, up-to-date, I wish I had a picture of it in the slideshow, but up-to-date new skyscraper complex, because a lot of people don't know that the World Trade Center was hemorrhaging money. Not only was it laden with asbestos, but companies were moving out of it in droves. It wasn't up to date. It didn't have the right fiber optics and wiring and all of that. There's a picture of the side of the Pentagon. Look at that. There is no way that a plane caused that damage. You see that? It hit around the second floor. It's just ridiculous. Okay, well, what was I saying? Damn it, I hate that I got distracted. Let's talk about Willie Rodriguez for a second. You want to talk about witnesses? Willie Rodriguez was a janitor in the World Trade Center complex, and he was there for the entire event. All right, Willie has given speeches about multiple explosions. Matter of fact, he was in a sub-basement level. I believe he was in sub-basement level 1, and there's 3 sub-basement levels, if I'm not mistaken. And he heard an explosion from below him. And then someone came up to where he was, his floor, with their skin inside out, hanging off of them. That was one of the first people Willie got out to safety. But Willie had to go up through the towers. He had the only keys. He had to unlock all the doors to help people escape. But no one, Willie was given the Medal of, I believe the Medal of Honor by President Bush. But his story, and he was not interviewed by the 9/11 Commission. His story is not included in the 9/11 report. And he has to go on places like Rosie O'Donnell's blog in order to tell his story. I mean, he speaks around the country, he still does. But you would think somebody that was in the tower the entire time, reported of multiple explosions, reported of explosions before the plane hit, you'd think that that kind of person would be listened to. There was also a person in Building 7. Now I can't think of his name. Barry Jennings. Barry Jennings was in Building 7 for the entire event. He was trapped in the building from the time the towers fell. He talks of multiple explosions in Building 7. He died soon after he was interviewed by the documentary Loose Change about his story, but he also speaks of multiple explosions. And when they rescue him, they take him through the lobby of World Trade Center 7. What was the lobby? Well, Barry says when he got there, it was a very nice lobby, escalators, all that. But when he's walking through it, he didn't even recognize it. They had to tell him it was the lobby. It was gutted. Now, that's World Trade Center 7. The plane didn't hit it. That was just office fires and debris. But we're to believe that that caused that building to collapse to dust. Then there's a lot of other problems with what went on during the day, like when the towers got hit, when the first tower got hit and the second tower got hit. President Bush was at a elementary school listening to the class read My Pet Goat, right? In Michael Moore's documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11, you see a clip where they're showing this. He's sitting there, and the Secret Service guy comes and tells him, hey, we've been attacked again, we're at war, whatever. And you see him react, but the look on his face and the way he sits there, he looks guilty as fuck to me. He looks like somebody who knows what was going to happen, and now it's too late to stop it. The ball is rolling, and he just freezes. But it's not the look on his face is not shock. It's more, here we go. You know? And I don't think Bush was a big orchestrator in the plan. I think that was mostly Dick Cheney. For those of you that know, Dick Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, and Halliburton made billions of dollars off our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they've also gotten exclusive oil deals and all of that from it. Let's see. Politics and Stuff says Cheney and Bush made hundreds of billions from Halliburton alone. They're not lying. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Cheney himself got billion-dollar bonuses from Halliburton and went right back to being their CEO. He was their CEO before he became vice president, went right back to being their CEO. And was heavily compensated for all that he did for them during that time. Hold on, I have to respond to this. That was distracting. That was, he was wanting to know if I put out something for dinner. She wasn't going to stop texting. But feel free to comment. Talk about whatever you want. I've been going on about my problems with 9/11 and why I believe the spreading the truth about 9/11 is so important. Because the truth is really all we have. We're in a time of deceit, a time of lies, and I'm not talking about fake news. That is bullshit brought up to censor. I'm not talking about that. Why am I sweating so bad? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being in a time of deceit where you can't trust anything around you. The truth is your only weapon. You know, when you're surrounded by lies, the truth is really all you have to fight back with. And that's why it's so important to spread the truth about things like 9/11. Because yes, we've been on this bullshit agenda with these wars in the Middle East for 17 years with no end in sight. But what is going to stop that but the truth? I had somebody telling me today, oh, it's not that important. It's crucial. And 9/11 is one of those linchpin events. To where if you unfolded and really had a true investigation of 9/11, you would really see and pull back the curtain on the corruption in our government. Just like if you had a real investigation of John F. Kennedy, which is why they still won't release the files that are heavily redacted and wouldn't tell you anything to begin with. They can't. Just like this, just like with 9/11. It's just they've used the media to brainwash your average person, that they don't question this, that they believe it. They believe that that's the way it happened, that 19 terrorists and a guy on dialysis pulled off such an elaborate attack on American soil, using only commercial airliners and box cutters. Someone I wanted to give a mention to as someone who tried to spread truth, and this is the other side of spreading truth. It's dangerous. Especially if people start to actually listen to you, it gets even more dangerous. Some of you may have heard of William Cooper. He was an independent radio host, an independent journalist. And months before 9/11, he came out right after they had interviewed Osama bin Laden. I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was CNN or somebody. They had sent a guy into the cave fortress in Afghanistan to interview Osama bin Laden. Right after that interview, he was like, you watch. There's going to be an event, and they're going to blame it on Osama bin Laden, and don't you believe it. Months later, right before 9/11, William Cooper died under mysterious circumstances. I believe, you know, you only have so many heart attacks. Maybe it was a real heart attack. Either way, William Cooper predicted months before 9/11 that there would be a terrorist attack and they would blame Osama bin Laden. And they were blaming Osama bin Laden that morning. They were already talking about on the media who was responsible for it. Let's see, I'm going to go through my notes here. See if I've got something else I wanted to talk about. Feel free to comment and bring up whatever you want about 9/11. I have been to 9/11 since the day it happened. It was, before I knew that what was wrong with it, I knew something was wrong with it. I was obsessed with 9/11 at first. I watched every mainstream media program. I listened to NPR nonstop. For a little while, I wouldn't call myself Republican, but I was glad we had a Republican president. I was that brainwashed and angry by the event that I was like, I'm glad that we have someone like George Bush that'll go ahead and go to war. I was one of those people. So I just want to say that it's possible to break free. Now, 9/11 is what shook me loose after like 6 months of looking into it deeply and knowing from the very beginning something is wrong with this. And after I started to pull back the curtain, you know, I've been on board with the truth movement. And, you know, you find out a lot of bad things about our government and about reality when you get involved in the truth movement. But it also gives you power because you're no longer part of the lie. You're part of the antidote to the lie. You're part of hope. You can spread truth. You can make a difference. And that's important. And that's why it's important to do feeds like this. That's why I had to do this feed on 9/11. I've made 2 videos. I was going to post a link to one. I'll post links to them later on 9/11. I've made 3 actually. But and there are plenty of great ones. I would recommend you look up Ken O'Keefe. Look up Ken O'Keefe on 9/11. I'm not sure exactly what the title of his documentary was, but that one is the one I would recommend the most. Then I would recommend Loose Change. That's a great one for beginners. If you're just getting into 9/11 or you want to introduce 9/11 to somebody else, Loose Change. In Plain Truth is a real good one. In Plain Sight, I think, or In Plain Truth. They only use actual mainstream media clips to show you the problems with the plane strikes and all of that. They only use clips from CNN and all those places. So you can't say it was doctored video. But those are some good ones. But let's see, man. I'm not ready to wrap up. We still got some time. I've only been going for 45 minutes. We're doing a special Conspiracy Theories and Chill. We've been talking about 9/11. This is the 17th anniversary of the attacks on 9/11. So we've been talking about 9/11 and all the problems with the 9/11 official story. I have went on my rant. Hold on, let me see what Politics and Stuff has said here. Halliburton bought out the Boots and Scoots oil recovery services just 5 days before the BP Gulf explosion. But that's for another show. Interesting. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. This is not the first time. You know, I believe that the plan that took place on September 11th was a modification of Operation Northwoods. For those of you that aren't familiar with Operation Northwoods, it proposed taking commercial jets and swapping them with drones. This was in the 70s, or 60s. They're swapping them with drones and blowing them up over Cuba and blaming the Cuban government so that we could go to war with Cuba. Now, I believe they did the same thing on 9/11. People ask me, well, what do you think happened? So for a little while, let's get into what I think happened on 9/11. First off, who do I think was responsible? I think the CIA, along with the Israeli Mossad, pulled off 9/11. And that as far as who was responsible in our government, I believe the only people that actually had to know or had to be involved were President Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld. And I'll tell you why. That's the only ones in the government actually that needed to be involved, or even in the know. Really, all you need is Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. Bush, I think, knew about it though. I think when he was told in that classroom, I think you can see it on his face that he knew about it. That was guilt. That wasn't shock. That was guilt and an awareness of what's going on. He knew what was going on. And that's why the Secret Service didn't rush him out of that school. Do you know how weird that is for there to be an event like that going on and the Secret Service doesn't immediately move the president? The president was at a public event. It was public knowledge where the president was going to be. If we're under attack, those kids in that building are in danger because the president is there. It is the Secret Service job to move that president. And they didn't move. He stayed there for another hour, hour and a half, held a press conference from there before he got in the air. That is highly irregular. The country is being attacked and the Secret Service doesn't move to protect the president when he's someplace where people know he's at. So anyways, what I think happened was the CIA, with the cooperation of the Mossad and Israel's Mossad, carried out 9/11. I believe that it was a modification of the Operation Northwoods plan. I believe that they switched all those commercial planes in the air with drones, landed the actual planes, most likely killed the people on board, flew the drones into the targets, shot down one of the drones, and because those don't, have you seen the planes that hit the towers? You don't get a good look at the first one, but you get a real good look at the second one from multiple angles. That is not a commercial airliner. There's no windows on the side of it. It's gray. It's the same kind of plane, same style, but it's not a commercial airliner. Commercial airliners are brightly colored, have logos on them, and windows. That plane does not. Now, I realize it's moving 600 miles an hour, but that plane does not have windows, and it's gray from every angle. There's no angle where it looks like a United Airlines plane. That's a military plane. And, you know, I believe really they only did those two. The Pentagon was a missile. I don't think there's any way around that. The Pentagon was a missile. It was not a plane. So they didn't have to actually fly that one in with a drone. They could have just landed that one and sent whatever did shoot at the Pentagon in its place. You know, as far as radar goes, just swap them like that. But I don't believe, that's how I believe that the attack took place. And then as far as the demolition of the towers in Building 7, there were, like I said earlier, there was an Israeli art group called the B Thing that were in both towers on the floors that were hit, the levels that were hit, for months prior to 9/11. The week before 9/11, all the bomb sniffing dogs were removed from the towers, and there was some kind of a weekend shutdown the weekend before 9/11, where there was all kinds of vehicles coming and going from the towers, unmarked vans. CIA whistleblowers have talked about that. But it's more than possible. They had more than enough time. I wish I would have included some pictures from the Israeli art students, but you can look it up, the B Thing, Israeli art students that were in the World Trade Center. And look up, there's pictures of them standing in front of these boxes marked BB-18. Those are bomb fuse boxes. They're detonators. Hey, Babels. Babels stopped by. She's probably on break at work. But yeah, that's how I believe it took place. And I believe that it's obvious. And I believe the smoking guns are the towers collapsing, the way they collapsed to dust. You heard firefighters talking about there's not even a piece of a phone, a file cabinet. It's just nothing. And you can look at the photos of them going into the basement of the towers on the rescue missions. So where'd it go? It's not in the basement. Where's the building? Look at that. Where is it? Where is 110 stories of steel and concrete and office furnishings? Where is it? It turned to dust. You can watch it happen. It's one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. No matter how many times I see the towers collapse, it never ceases to amaze me. And I don't know how anybody can look at that and go, okay, that makes sense. 2 planes hit those buildings and they just dissolve into dust, and that makes total sense. I don't know how anybody in their right mind could be okay with that. It's beyond me. I don't understand it. But it's important to share the truth, because that's all we have is the truth. You know, I almost didn't do this speed because, yes, 9/11 is one of my most passionate subjects. 9/11 is the subject that woke me up and helped me see the world as it really was. But it bums me out. Sometimes I'm developing a fatalistic personality where I don't believe in society anymore. I don't believe that we have the ability to pull ourselves out of this trap that we're in. We've been taken over by a satanic cabal. And this is one of their handiwork. The September 11th events were their handiwork. To go on an agenda that they already had in place. You can look up General Wesley Clark. He talks about how they already had in place to go to war with these 7 countries. And the only one left on that list that we haven't went to war with yet is Iran. And believe me, we're heading that direction. So this was an agenda that was already in place. They already knew that they were going to do all of this. You can look that up too. And I'm pretty sure I'm right about the general's name, General Wesley Clark. And look it up. He talks about being at the Pentagon and being briefed on a plan for 7 wars. And the guy tells him, he's like, why are we going to war with you? I don't know. But look that up, and then also treat yourself to that Ken O'Keefe video. If you only watch one 9/11 video, treat yourself to Ken O'Keefe, because he lays down truth brutally. And he is one of the only people that talks about the Israeli connection, you know, and that's important. A lot of people don't include that. And I know I got strikes on YouTube, and I know it's because I talked about Israel being responsible for 9/11, because there was no adult content in that video. I know that my strike was because of Israel. My name is Sean. Susan. Hi, Susan. My name is Sean Yankee, and this is Conspiracy Theories and Chill. And what we do on this show is we hang out and talk about conspiracies. Tonight I'm doing a special episode on 9/11, but we can talk about anything you want. I've been talking for about an hour about 9/11, and we'll hit it a little more as we go. But we can talk about any conspiracy you want to. I'm pretty up on most of them. So whatever you bring up, I can probably at least talk about. But if you want to bring up anything about September 11th, say that too. This is the audience. This show is heavy audience participation. So I want to hear from you. If you're here, comment. Where were you on September 11th? What were you doing? Is September 11th the event that woke you up? How do you feel about September 11th, 17 years later? What do you think is important to discuss about September 11th that maybe I didn't touch on? Or maybe you just got here, you don't know what I said about September 11th. What do you have to say about September 11th? Oh, I got something in my notes that I didn't touch on. The investigation. Now, I talked a little bit about how we shipped all the steel to China. Now, you would think you'd want to investigate that steel to find out why those buildings collapsed the way they did, but no, we shipped it all off to China before we could investigate it. And then, after intense pressure, the government decided to have a commission, an investigation into 9/11, the 9/11 Commission. They gave it a budget of only $14 million. And the first person they tried to put in charge of the 9/11 Commission is Henry Kissinger. That's how much they gave a shit about truth. They wanted to put the master of lies and deception in charge of the commission on 9/11. People were outraged, so they ended up putting someone else in charge of it. But it didn't stop being a joke. And it is a joke. There has been no real investigation in 9/11. The purpose of the 9/11 Commission was not even to find out who did it. They had no interest in that. They already had their patsy lined up, and they already had their explanation ready the day of. And it never changed. And the list of terrorists has never changed, even though most of them are still alive. No one has issue with the fact that 5 of them, including Osama bin Laden himself, Tim Osman, had ties to the CIA. That's 5 CIA operatives that were involved out of the 19. Brian says the Pentagon. Yeah, I'll touch on the Pentagon. I'll touch on it again. If you're just joining us, this is Conspiracy Theories and Chill, and this is the audience participation part. Please comment. We're talking about 9/11, so comment whatever you want. And I'm keeping up on the comments, and I will respond. But Brian brought up the Pentagon. The Pentagon is a huge smoking gun from the 9/11 event, as I talked about earlier. And there's a picture of the side of the Pentagon. Does that look like a plane hit it? That's before the roof collapsed. Now, a lot of people don't realize the roof didn't collapse for like 45 minutes. That's the damage that was done to the side of the Pentagon. About a 16-foot hole. Didn't even break the windows. Now, where's the wings? Where are the pieces of the plane? Not on the lawn. Not anywhere. Just like the others, even the one that crashed in the field in Shanksville, it is gone. There's no evidence of a plane at any of these locations. That truck that you've been seeing, that's an interesting story too. Have you heard of the dancing Israelis? This is another way that Israel ties in. There was a group of guys that were nicknamed the dancing Israelis because they were filming the event in that truck with a picture of the World Trade Center being hit by a plane on the side of it. I wish I could bring it back up right now. But it legit has a picture of the World Trade Center being hit by a plane on the side of it. They were in that truck driving. It was like 4 or 5 guys. And They were documenting the event, is what they say. And they were interviewed when they got back to Israel about what their purpose was there. And they said they were there to document the event. Now, how would you know there was an event to document? You know, it's reported that they were there well before the first plane hit in their spot and were dancing and celebrating and filming this event. How'd they know there was an event going to happen? Unless maybe they were part of the Israeli art students. You know, there's a lot of shady stuff with 9/11. But it's 17 years later, and we're still no closer to the truth. The average person doesn't even know about PNAC, the Project for a New American Century, where they came up with the idea that they would need something like an event, like a new Pearl Harbor, in order to move their agenda forward. They would need to get the average person's support of the agenda of war that they've had in the Middle East for the last 17 years. They would need something like Pearl Harbor. They talk about that in a document called Project for a New American Century, Building Americans' Defenses. Just months before 9/11. And in that group, you had people like Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and other key members of the Bush administration. They all went on, a lot of the members of that group went on to be in the cabinet, the Bush cabinet. So it's kind of funny how they get their Pearl Harbor just months after saying they needed it. And then they immediately get to begin forward with their agenda of war in the Middle East. Let's see, do we have anybody still here? If you're here, go ahead and comment. I want to know what you think of 9/11, what your thoughts are, where you were. What do you think is important to touch on? What haven't I touched on? You know, maybe you know a little more about the money that was made on 9/11, the gold that went missing. You know, there was another van that was stopped with explosives on the Brooklyn Bridge, I believe. That came from the Towers complex. That was inside there. I guess it wasn't needed. Or just another patsy. Just someone to distract. Okay, we got 8 people here. So anybody wants to comment, we could talk about whatever you want. We've been talking about 9/11. Today is the 17th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. By terrorist attacks, I mean the terrorists in the CIA and the Mossad. That's who I believe carried out 9/11. I do not believe. I know for a fact that it was not 19 Muslims. It had nothing to do with the Middle East. You know, definitely had nothing to do with Saddam Hussein. Matter of fact, just like Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein had control of his region. I'm not saying he's a good person, but he had control of the people. And it is a nut house, a total quagmire over there now. And that is completely our fault. And it's largely because we removed Saddam Hussein. You know, again, I'm not defending Saddam Hussein, but we are not supposed to be Team America World Police. You know, we do not need bases all over the world. We do not need a $700 billion a year military. We need things like healthcare for all. But we don't get those things because we're, like I said, we're ran by a cabal and the military-industrial complex. So we get what they want. And what they want is constant war and a stupid populace that doesn't question them. And they use their mainstream media, their most powerful weapon, to brainwash us. The mainstream media has been CIA controlled since Operation Mockingbird. And that's just what's official. That's just what you can look up. The CIA has infiltrated our media since Operation Mockingbird. And oh yeah, they say that they don't anymore. But that's just like MK Ultra. They still do both of those things. Of course, there's still an MK Ultra project. They've probably advanced so far with MK Ultra that they are actually to the point of Manchurian candidates, just complete mind control slaves. I see a lot of compelling arguments for a lot of celebrities being mind control slaves. But I think they're absolutely capable of it. I'm not going on record as saying that they've done it, but they're absolutely capable of it. And it absolutely still goes on. And as far as the media and the CIA, like if you don't know what I'm talking about, Operation Mockingbird was when they started infiltrating the media, the CIA. They sent in agents to be journalists, and to give misinformation and to disinform the American people. And they still do that. Matter of fact, your mainstream media, watch any news show and look at all the hypnotic imagery that comes up right before and during the show. It is a total mindfuck. That's why it's poisoning. The best thing is just to stay away from it. So we've been going for about an hour. It looks like there's 4 people here. We're talking about September 11th and why it's important to share the truth about September 11th. And the reason why it's important is silence gives consent, and being silent about the truth of 9/11 has caused millions of deaths, 3,000 on the day and millions since. And we are still at war over this 17 years later. And the truth is the only way to fight back. The truth is the only thing that rights this. And, you know, it's dangerous. William Cooper can tell you about how dangerous it is to share the truth. But it's all you got. So you either be quiet or you speak the truth. I'm going to speak the truth. Let's see. I'm going to give some time for people to comment. I'm going to go through my notes a little bit. We've been going for about an hour. I'm ready to keep going. I had somebody joke with me, you should do a 24-hour marathon of conspiracy theories and chill. I'm off tomorrow. So that's not outside the realm of possibilities. But look at that. There's the Pentagon again. See the hole? Does a plane fit in that hole? No, it doesn't. And where's the damage from the wings? The bottom line is 9/11 did not happen the way we were told it was. And all you need is your eyes and your basic senses to see that. Even if you only have a problem with the Pentagon strike and Building 7, you have a problem with the official story. And I don't know why that's not enough for you to dig deeper, you know, to look deeper and see what else you find that you have a problem with in 9/11. I'm sure it would be a lot. So open up your mind to the truth. It's a scary truth, but it's an important truth. And until like I said, when polled, most of Americans disagree with the official story, but that number needs to be higher. And that is only possible by us sharing the truth and talking about what actually happened on 9/11, which was a false flag operation, an inside job, if you will. Let's see. I don't see anyone commenting. I'm going to give a little bit of time. I'm going to give like 15 more minutes before we wrap up. If I don't get some more comments. If I get some more comments, we can keep going. But I don't want to ramble on. You know, I'm starting to feel like I'm beating a dead horse. And while it's important, especially in 9/11, to me is one of the most important topics. I could talk about it all day, but I don't want to bore you by repeating things I've already said. So if there's anything anybody wants to add, you want to talk about Flight 93, you want to talk more about the Pentagon, the 19 terrorists, some of them still being alive, Tim Osman here, you want to talk about him. Or if you just want to talk about conspiracies, we can talk about other conspiracies. We don't have to talk about 9/11. But I'm going to give a minute to see if anybody has anything they want to comment, because this is a participation show. Did everybody here know that Tim Osman, that Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset named Tim Osman? Is that common knowledge? I feel like it's common knowledge. But do all people know about that? Does the average person know that Osama bin Laden has an alias, Tim Osman, and he was in the CIA? Does the average person know that the CIA started Al-Qaeda? The average person needs to know those things. The media is never going to talk about those things. But the average person needs to know those things. Because you can't make informed decisions if you're living in a lie. Now, I've seen compelling arguments for a matrix, that we live in a matrix, a simulation. But we definitely live in a matrix of deceit. Whether we live in a simulation or not, I'm not smart enough to comprehend, but we definitely live in a matrix of deceit. And when you're surrounded by so many lies, the truth is the only weapon you have to fight back with. And it's getting harder and harder to do that. Truth channels are being censored on YouTube. The war on fake news is being used to take down any dissenting voices against the establishment media agenda. You know, they're starting with people like Alex Jones, but who I disagree with. I don't want to defend Alex Jones, but they're starting there. That doesn't mean that RT won't be next, or, you know, any of the places you go for your independent media. What if they start banning Jimmy Dore? Will you care then? I mean, I don't like Alex Jones, but there's that van. You see it? You see the plane hitting the towers? That's the van that these guys were in that day. You can't make this shit up. But that's what I'm saying. It's time for truth. It's time to spread the truth. So if you like this video and you want to share it, get the truth out. But I wanted to recap some of the recommendations I made for 9/11 videos. Watch Ken O'Keefe, K-E-E-F-E. He has a documentary on 9/11. I wish I wrote down the name of it before this feed, but look that up. Treat yourself to that. That is a really good documentary on 9/11. He gets into the Israeli connection, and is one of the only people that talks about the Israeli connection. Other good ones are 9/11 Trillions Follow the Money, 9/11 Trillions Follow the Money, Loose Change, In Plain Sight, Zeitgeist is okay. Zeitgeist is all right, but they spend a little too much time on religion in Zeitgeist. Not enough. Watch the second, I think it's the second Zeitgeist for 9/11. It still has a lot of religion stuff in it. Zeitgeist mostly bashes religion. It has good things to it too. It pushes the Venus Project, which I think is a really good idea. I don't know how familiar you are with the Venus Project, but it's an idea. I don't remember the name of the man who came up with it, but it's an idea for sustainable society that does not use money and provides their own resources. It's complicated, but look it up, the Venus Project. That's something interesting to look into too. A lot of sci-fi uses a bastardization of the Venus Project. They show it in a way where it's all gone wrong. But in theory, it's a very good idea. Let's see, we still have some people here. I'll go ahead and remind you, I'm giving you guys some time to comment, whatever you want to talk about on September 11th, or it could be something else. Bring it up now, and we'll talk about it. We can even talk about other conspiracies, because I've already been talking for about an hour. But there's the flag of our true masters, the Israeli flag. That's why Netanyahu walks into Congress like he runs the place, because he does. Anybody got anything that they want to add? Well, I'll go ahead and start wrapping up. Thank you for coming by. If you came by, thank you for stopping by and watching this video. Please share it to get the truth out about 9/11. It's been 17 years since the events of 9/11. And since that time, we've been involved in war after war and endless wars, all based around a lie. And the best and only way to fight back against that lie is with the truth. So share this video, help get exposure to the truth about 9/11. Look up some of them documentaries I told you about. If you haven't watched the Ken O'Keefe one, again, I highly recommend it. But thanks for stopping by. Thanks for sharing if you shared. And I'm going to put some links to some 9/11 videos that I made in the comments. If you're watching this later, share some of those. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, and things and stuff. This has been Conspiracy Theories and Chill. I'm Sean, and I hope to see you guys next time we have an episode, probably coming from politics and stuff until they get tired of seeing me. But thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time.